page employees. We represent 113,000 men and women who work in the behind-the-camera crafts in motion picture and television, also in legitimate theater and in trade show in the pipe and drape field.
Okay. And Fernando, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and about your organization.
Well, Telecomics is a group based in Sweden, but really spread all over the world. And we have been using the internet and networks to do activism actions for more than 4 years now. Maybe what got more attention in the US was when we did something called Op Syria, where we actually put information out about how some encryption, US encryption, was being used by the Syrian government, and that made the page of the Wall Street Journal.
Okay. Rosa?
Hi, my name is Rosa. I work for Newsy. It's an online and mobile application news organization. What we do is we take clips from different news organizations and create one video where we add our analysis so you can see how different news organizations are covering a given story. It gives you insight into their bias. You can check us out online or in smartphone apps.
Okay.
And Kyle will be joining us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you explain Kyle's role, what he does?
We're both community managers here, so we interact with our online communities, and we spread our content using different video sharing sites. So we use YouTube pretty extensively, Glib TV, several other places where we can spread our media. And we also help teach a class on online audience development here at the University of Missouri.
Okay, and I just want to let you guys know that this is streaming live within Google+, so we always say keep it clean. So just keep it clean for us, that would be great. And then we will also use this discussion during our newscast later on coming up, since we are recording that. So thank you for availing your time. And why don't we go ahead and get right into the discussion. If you're watching this, I will open it up to my circles here after we've had an opportunity to listen to some of these individuals. Rosa, I'm going to mute you for now, and we'll let you chime in. Let's start here with Scott a little bit. People are defining SOPA a different way, and so I want to go around our little room here and ask you, how would you define it?
Well, I think what the Stop Online Piracy Act and the companion bill from the Senate, the Protect IP Act, seek to do is to afford law enforcement the same tools that they have domestically to combat piracy and infringement online.
Fernando, how do you define it? And do you agree with Scott's definition?
I think that SOPA and PIPA are trying to fight a real problem, which is online piracy. That exists. It's a real problem. But the way that is written is just so broad that will give really a space for being abused. And that is the part where and lots of people are really against, because we have of course to make sure and to try and stop online piracy, but we can't do it by taking the freedom of speech, and so that I think that is the main issue here.
And Scott, would you agree with that summation? This is Scott Harbinson from the IATSE, and also Fernando Fonseca from Stop SOPA, Rosa So, and Kyle Luke from Newsy.com, in case you're just joining us. Would you agree with that, Scott?
I don't agree. I mean, the definition in the bill says that in order for it to be actionable, that a website has to be dedicated to infringing activity with no other significant commercial purpose. That's a pretty high threshold, and that has to be adjudicated by a federal judge. So, there's been a lot of disinformation that a website can be taken down for having an occasional piece of infringing content. Dedicated to infringing activity is the legal standard, and that's not casual infringement. That's commercial grade infringement.
Mm-hmm. And feel free to jump in here, guys. You don't have to wait for me to call on you. Just feel free to jump in here as you go. I have muted you, Rosa, but I will unmute you. You can unmute your mics. Okay, go ahead, Fernando.
Well, I think that the problem, and I know that the DNS blocking has been taken away from the bill, which was one of the main issues that so many people came forward saying, okay, this will basically break the internet as we know it. And I think that the language that we have in the bill is not really clear. And again, I say it gives a lot of space for being abused, if you want to. And we already have examples of some things happening, especially on YouTube. The most recent one that I saw was someone that filmed this orchestra in a school orchestra playing Mozart, and Sony asked for the takedown of the video, saying that they had the rights for Mozart's work that has been on the public domain for more than 20 years now, or something like that. So we really have to be careful in the way that these bills are phrased, so that we have no space for them being abused.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, if you want to talk about the DMCA, we can talk about the DMCA. Dedicated to infringing activity is the standard that's in these bills, and that has to be decided by a federal judge. There's no federal judge in the DMCA process. That's what you're talking about right now. And the DMCA threshold is not dedicated to infringing activity. So to discuss one in the context of the other, I don't think is a fair assessment.
I was using it as an example how it is already being used for takedowns of content, and what SOPA and PIPA bring actually is the takedown of the whole website.
Well, again, under SOPA and the Protect IP Act, there is a federal judge in the process. It has to be adjudicated to be dedicated to infringing activity, and people are afforded the opportunity to refute that claim. Any action under SOPA and the Protect IP Act is pursuant to Rule 65 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. So these foreign infringing sites have the same rights as any other commercial litigant under U.S. law. I mean, I don't know what more you want than being treated as anybody else would be under the law.
Does anyone because I don't want this to be just a dialogue between us.
Yeah, let's bring Rosa in here, and Kyle Luke as well. First off, explain what you guys do at Newsy.com and what your view is of SOPA and PIPA.
Well, I think Newsy, we're protected by fair use, so I don't think that we'd be in any way impacted by it. But I have to ask something about the DMCA. Like, wouldn't this change the burden of proof? Like, the DMCA says it allows for notices to be given to these websites if they're thought to be engaged solely in infringing activities, whereas SOPA allows for third parties to bring these court processes to bear, like, out of hand. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. I'm not a lawyer. But I was asking you. Is my understanding of that correct?
Well, I mean, this does not negate the provisions of the DMCA. I'm not by any means an expert, particularly well versed in the DMCA. DMCA, I believe, came about in 1998. Things on the internet have changed a little bit since 1998. And I know a colleague of mine, a woman by the name of Ellen Seidler, made a small, low-budget film, $250,000 film, and I believe that she told me that she has sent out over 20,000 DMCA notices since the release of her film. Now, she's a woman who hasn't made her money back on her film. It's pirated all over the world, and the DMCA notice and takedown system for this small individual artist it isn't worth a bucket of warm spit, to be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't get the job done.
I don't know. I just don't think it's the right solvency. I mean, I think plenty of people make money online. Louis C.K. is a really good example of that. He released his content online through his website using PayPal and made $1 million in 12 days simply by controlling how it was, not using the government to control how it was spread across the internet, but by making it available by himself. Like, I think that the industry itself should evolve. We can put content online, put ads on it, and make money from it without having to sort of turn off the internet to do it.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now, I think that Rose's point is really true, because I think that what we are watching here and with this debate is something bigger, and this bigger issue is a clash of cultures, and a clash of cultures that we have a old business model trying to compete with a new business model, a business model that doesn't need so many people in the middle, to reach an audience. And this is something, when you have movies being made for $1,000 that reach 10 million people, these, of course, I understand that it scares a lot of businesses. But the thing is that instead of fighting it and lobbying and putting so much money into the government to pass laws like SOPA and PIPA, maybe these businesses should rethink their business model in order to adapt to this new generation, because this is how it's working, and it's totally unfair, like someone like Rupert Murdoch saying that Google is the leader of piracy. No, Google is the leader of a new generation, if you want to, because it provides you tools to reach millions of people with just a single video. And this is something that I think that all of this debate is really, really about this. It's about a whole business model from the music and movie industry trying to fight what has become a reality for millions of users and content producers.
I don't entirely disagree with that. I certainly disagree with the characterization of Google. Google cares about Google. Google doesn't care about anything else. But we can agree to disagree on that point. But with respect to the new distribution models, I've heard that before. And I think that the studios are waking up to that. You see Netflix, you see Hulu. But as people are clamoring for more and more distribution models, online distribution models, the problem is that if you and I want to set up a video downloading service, a legal one, you and I are going to have to pay license fees in order to download that product. How do we compete against Ninja Video that didn't pay any license fees? How do we compete against that? So the existence of these pirate sites makes it damn near impossible for small startup legitimate sites to exist in the marketplace. And I don't have a remedy for that.
I'm looking offline here, and some comments from people just watching the stream. Kenneth Cummins says, remember that cassettes and VCRs were going to kill the music and movie industries, or adapt or die. And Charles Harwood says, keep the law, stop allowing the lawyers to change the precedents. You were saying, Fernando?
Yeah, I think that, the idea that small startups can't make it in this market with I think if you look at when Apple introduced iTunes, I'm not an Apple user, but when they introduced iTunes and selling songs for 0.99 cents, or even less, everybody said this will never work, and it did. And it did because they had a strategy for it. And because people would prefer, and this was one of the first clashes that we had between the old business model and the new business models, which was instead of me having to buy one CD that usually just has 2 songs that I really want to listen to, I could buy the individual tracks. Today, cable television is having a problem because now people with streaming, they can watch what they want, when they want, and they pay for it. We are seeing that these services that have added value, people actually are not pirating the shows, they are actually adhering to these services. So I think that the main question here is, the big industry and the Hollywood studios and the music industry, they will have to adapt instead of trying to make laws that are trying to stop this movement that, in my opinion, is unstoppable.
Yeah, just to echo and build off of that, iTunes was a market reaction to piracy. And, you know, that created things like iTunes and Spotify where I can get streaming music with ads or pay for it, like you were saying, on a marginal basis. The video industries could very easily do the same and have already started with things like Hulu. To suggest that you can't make money off of content that's being pirated is just a failure of the imagination. $4.3 billion were spent on online ad revenues last year. That's up 45% from the year before. There's money to be made. You just simply have to put your content there and make it and monetize it.
Well, you know, and look, I don't disagree with that. There needs to be more robust distribution systems, but why, in the intervening time, should an industry suffer from stuff? And that, you know, I mean, why should we sit around and tolerate that?
It just seems like a attempt to use policy to solve a problem that can be solved by the market.
Well, all right, I hear what you're saying.
Okay. Would anybody else like to weigh in on this issue? We're wrapping it up here just a little bit, and I just opened it up to my circle, so there'll be people come in here who might have some questions. Anybody else like to weigh in or have a question either for Rosa or Fernando or for Scott as well? Again, Scott Hardison is with the IATSE, and Scott, again, explain what those letters stand for.
The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. We represent motion picture and television workers, the grips, electricians, cameramen, etc., as well as stagehands and in the pipe and drape field, exhibition workers.
Okay, and in a nutshell, if you could explain in one sentence your stand on SOPA and PIPA.
Well, we're for it, and primarily because there's two reasons. First of all, in our industry, many of our health care and retirement plans are funded in large part from downstream revenues, the very revenues that are being eroded by piracy. The second is the chilling effect that it has on reinvestment, particularly in the low-budget realm. A typical Hollywood motion picture makes about 25% of its revenues in North American box office, and the other 75% comes from the downstream sources I described. Typically, a low-budget independent film does not get a North American box office release, so it's 100% dependent on those downstream sources for its entire to recoup its entire investment. What makes matters even more difficult is that these aren't studio financed, so these independent films have to go to private investors or banks to get a loan. And the first thing out of the banker's mouth is, well, I know as soon as you put this thing out there, it's going to be all over the internet. How am I going to make my money back? And that's a legitimate question, given the experience that many have had, such as Elaine Seidler, who I mentioned earlier. And why the low-budget market is so important is it's really analogous to small business in the greater American economy. It is the engine of job creation. It's also the place where a young person who's interested in getting into business, it's where they're going to get their first job. I mean, you can't go to college and get a degree in how to be a grip. It really is something that you have to learn on the job. It's also the venue where a third grip gets his first chance to be a key grip, where a cameraman gets his chance to be a cinematographer, where a first-time director is going to get his or her break. So to the extent that the wonderful breadth of expression that exists in the motion picture industry is important, nurturing the low-budget independent market is absolutely vital, I think, culturally and economically. And that's really the dog we have in this fight. Quite frankly, if you told me 5 years ago I'd be on the same side of the table as the studios and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I would have laughed out loud. I wouldn't have gotten on the same elevator with these guys. And that should tell you something about how seriously labor in the entertainment industry views the threat.
Okay, so Fernando, if you can explain your organization and also tell us your view on SOPA and PIPA, and we're going to wrap this up here in a little bit. And if one of you guys in the Hangout have a question for them, while Fernando is answering, I'll also check outside in the chat as well. Fernando.
Well, I think that, there are valid points made about online piracy. I don't think that we should ignore the issue. There is a problem. I don't think there is a problem that only originates in foreign rogue websites. I think that is we are in a connected world, and there is no way that we can just put borders in the internet. But I think that SOPA and PIPA just take it too far, and they take it too far because. And I'm not going to say that there is not a solution for it, but I think that the solution that is provided is worded in a way that probably can be abused. And I think that this is one of the main issues that we have, is that suddenly we have a bill that gives way too much power to companies in order to intervene in the internet as it is today. So I'm not going to say that online piracy is not a problem. Of course that it is a problem, but I think that, like Rosa said, I think that the industry itself, working with the technology side, with the nerds, if you want to, they would be able to get a better solution than to have this put into a law that actually can damage our freedom of speech.
Rosa, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about small films and how they are sort of helped by the internet. I mean, Ed Burns just crowdsourced a movie via Twitter called Newlyweds. Instead of having to pay to use and license content, he got some of his Twitter followers to crowdsource the score. It brings down costs to use these technological tools, and it also allows your users, the people that would watch the movie, and it gives them the ability to actually fund your project through PayPal. So the very systems that SOPA would sort of attack could be used to help these industries, especially when they're like smaller market-based movies.
Again, I mean, we're talking about foreign sites that are dedicated to the theft of U.S. intellectual property, copyrighted content, who are monetizing it themselves. I don't see a conflict.
I'm sorry. Are you talking specifically about the Pirate Bay?
Sound issue.
Well,
if you are talking about the Pirate Bay, it has been already shown that SOPA and PIPA will not be able to circumvent the Pirate Bay problem. So if the main target of this bill is to take down Pirate Bay, it's not going to happen, because it has been already demonstrated technically how the provisions that are in the bill will not stop the Pirate Bay and other sites similar to it.
Well, and as you said earlier in the conversation, I thought you made clear, you acknowledged that the DNS blocking provision is out. It's out of both bills. And, look, this bill is really targeted at the soft middle. There's 20% of the population who's going to infringe, and they're going to take whatever they want, and they're never going to pay a dime for it, and they have the technological skills to get around any sort of technological tool used to block. And then there's 20% of the people who would never think about it. And then there's the 60% in the middle who, hey, it's easy, I can't get caught, there's nothing really, no harm done in their eyes. Those are the folks who I think will be the ones who are affected by the bill. But there are no technological measures, as you pointed out. It's right now the only thing left in the bill is the financial course, which is injunctions against payment processors, injunction against ad networks, and at least for the time being, removal from search engines. But the whole DNS blocking at the ISP level, that's gone.
Guys,
well, that's gone on SOPA. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I want to have enough time to process in the video for us to get it on the air. I just want to thank each and every one of you for weighing in on that and how neat is this technology in that we can have people who, from differing opinions, not having a war of words over Twitter or Facebook or anything, but having a real conversation inside inside a chat room. So thank you again for availing your time, Scott Harbinson of IATSE. Thank you as well, Fernando Fonseca of Pro-SOPA, Rosa So as well of Newsy. I appreciate you checking in, and everyone else who checked in as well. Thank you very much. Obviously, we're not going to solve this issue in a Hangout, but this kind of dialogue, extended dialogue, is what's going to help our viewers locally and other people watching this try to better understand this issue. So thank you very much. And are there any parting words that you all would like to say before I click end here?
Thank you for your time.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with opponents of the bill. Yeah, I think it's important we have this dialogue, and I hope that you know, some of what I had to say today made sense. Certainly, some of the points you guys made were valid. And at the end of the day, you know, I think that everybody wants a bill that protects creators, does not reward pirates financially for exploiting the work that does not belong to them, and leaves us all with a free and open internet.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye now.
Yeah,
All right.
bye.
Bye.